Most people have never seriously considered an H-shaped home. They've seen rectangles. They've seen L-shapes, maybe a U if they were lucky. But the H-shape sits in a category most families stumble into by accident and then wonder why nobody showed it to them sooner. Here's the thing, this design solves 5 distinct problems that no other single footprint touches. 2 wings, 1 connecting spine, 2 open-air courtyards carved right into the middle of the home's geometry, and a structural logic so clean that engineers and residential architects keep recommending it not as a luxury indulgence, but as a genuinely smart solution for families living through multiple life stages at once. Architects who have worked in residential steel frame construction for decades will tell you the same thing. The H-shape doesn't just look different, it performs differently. Privacy, light, thermal comfort, zone separation, the geometry is doing the work before a single piece of furniture is placed. By the end of this video, you'll either be sketching your own version on the back of whatever's nearby, or you'll know clearly why this shape isn't for your land, your climate, or your situation. Both outcomes are worth the next few minutes. Let's go. An H-shaped barndominium is exactly what the letter suggests. Picture 2 long rectangular wings running parallel to each other, north and south, east and west, however the site dictates, connected in the middle by a shorter perpendicular structure. That connecting piece is the spine. The 2 wings are the arms, and the negative space on either side of the spine between the wings becomes 2 sheltered courtyards. That's the whole geometry. It's not complicated. What's complicated is understanding why that shape behaves so differently from a straight rectangle or even an L in a standard rectangle. You have 1 exterior facade per side. 4 walls, 4 exposures. Light enters from 2 directions if you're lucky. Sound travels freely from one end to the other. There's no natural break in the plan, which means privacy zones have to be invented artificially through interior walls, sound insulation, and closed doors. The rectangle fights your lifestyle. You force the architecture to do what it doesn't naturally want to do. The H-shape is different because the geometry itself does the social work. The 2 wings are physically separated by the courtyard voids on either side of the spine. You can put parents in one wing, adult children in the other, grandparents in one arm, teenagers in the second, a home office in one wing, living and sleeping in the other. The structure separates those populations by actual outdoor space, not just a hallway or a shared wall, but open air. That distinction matters more than most people realize. The difference between a shared wall and a shared courtyard isn't aesthetic, it's acoustic, it's thermal, it's psychological. Now, the H-shape is not a new idea. This exact logic appears in Roman villa design over 2,000 years ago, where the central connecting hall served as the atrium, and the flanking wings housed extended family and working staff separately. Medieval English manor houses used the same H-plan, with the Great Hall in the spine and the Lord's family on one wing, service quarters on the other. Korean hanok compounds organized around a central maru, an open connecting passage, with sleeping quarters branching into privacy. The geometry keeps reappearing across centuries and cultures because it keeps solving the same human problem. How do you keep a large family close without making them feel trapped together? Modern barndominium construction, with its steel post-frame structure and long clear-span capability, actually lends itself to H-plan execution better than traditional stick frame. The long wings can span wide without interior load-bearing walls chopping up the plan. The spine can be shorter and taller, clear-story windows, high ridge beam, letting light travel deep into the center of the home. Before we get into the 5 reasons engineers and architects keep recommending this layout, there's one of those 5 reasons that surprises almost everyone who hears it. It has nothing to do with privacy or light. It has to do with something you feel in the home but can almost never explain. We'll get there. But first, the structural case. Reason 3 on this list is the one most people don't see coming. It's not about space. It's not about looks. It's about something that changes the emotional character of a home at a level most architects don't even discuss openly. Keep watching. The first reason engineers keep coming back to the H-shape is straightforward once you see it. It's about light and about what the geometry of the H does to light penetration across the entire footprint. In a standard long rectangle, you have a depth problem. The wider the building gets, the harder it is to get natural light into the center. Rooms in the middle of a deep plan rectangle end up relying on artificial lighting for most of the day. You're burning electricity to compensate for a geometry problem. The H-shape eliminates that problem structurally. Because the 2 wings are narrower than the full rectangle would be, and because the courtyards open the sides of the spine to light on both faces, almost no interior space in an H-plan sits more than 20 to 25 feet from an exterior window. Natural light reaches the center of the home from multiple angles. The courtyard-facing rooms, whatever's on the interior sides of the wings and the spine, can be glazed generously without any loss of privacy from the street. That's the second part of this. The H creates what designers call inward-facing orientation. The courtyards are private outdoor space, not a front yard that the whole neighborhood can see into, but enclosed semi-private space between the wings of your own home. You can glaze those courtyard-facing walls with floor-to-ceiling glass, sliding doors, banks of windows, clear-story panels above, and nobody outside the property sees any of it. The light is yours. The view is yours. The exterior of the home reads as solid and private. The interior lives in light. Steel post-frame construction amplifies this advantage. Because steel doesn't need load-bearing walls at every 8 feet the way traditional wood framing does, you can open those courtyard-facing walls almost entirely. A 60-foot wing with a full bank of glazing along its courtyard face is structurally achievable in Barndominium construction, in a way that would be difficult and expensive in stick frame. Engineers also point to the structural stiffness of the H-plan under lateral load, wind, and seismic. Two parallel wings tied by a perpendicular spine create a natural moment-resisting frame in two directions simultaneously. The plan that looks like a letter happens to also be a well-braced structural diagram. You're not choosing aesthetics over engineering. The aesthetics and the engineering are pointing at the same shape. Taken together, what this means practically is that an H-shaped barndominium can be built to a high structural standard, filled with natural light throughout, and still maintain exterior privacy better than an open-plan rectangle 3 times its cost. The second reason is the one most families actually cite when they talk about why they chose this footprint. It's about zones. It's about who lives where and how the geometry protects both privacy and connection simultaneously. Here's the situation that a growing number of families find themselves in. Aging parents need to be closer. Adult children are coming back. Grandchildren are visiting for weeks at a time. And yet every generation in that household needs to feel like they have their own life, their own space, their own morning without running into each other in the hallway before anyone's had coffee. The H-shape handles this without requiring any architectural invention. The wings do it automatically. Put one generation in the east wing, put another in the west. The spine becomes the shared zone, the place where the family comes together intentionally, not because the hallway forced them into the same path. Kitchen, dining, living room, shared gathering space. That all lives in the spine. The wings are private by distance, not just by walls. According to data from the National Association of Realtors, roughly 14% of home buyers are now purchasing specifically for multi-generational living. That number has been climbing steadily for a decade. The design world hasn't fully caught up. Most production home designs weren't conceived for 2 adult populations under one roof. They were conceived for one nuclear family, full stop. The H-shape, because it was historically designed for exactly that multi-generational condition, fits the current moment better than most modern floor plan books would suggest. Now, and this is worth saying out loud because the comments section on every multi-generational design video eventually gets here, the wing separation does not mean a shared kitchen. Each wing can carry a kitchenette. A small secondary kitchen, refrigerator, 2-burner cooktop, a sink, a microwave, enough to make breakfast without crossing into the main spine. Enough to maintain culinary independence. The shared kitchen in the spine remains the social kitchen, the Sunday dinner kitchen, the holiday kitchen. But the secondary kitchenette in each wing means nobody is fighting for the coffee maker at 7 in the morning. That one detail changes the entire social dynamic of the layout. Similarly, each wing can have its own entrance. Separate garage bays if the plan allows it. The path from car to kitchen, especially with groceries, especially in the rain, can be fully independent for each population in the home. This is not a small thing. The question of who uses which door, who parks where, and who gets wet carrying in the groceries is one of the first practical objections people raise about multi-generational living. The H-shape answers it with geometry, not compromise. Separated but connected. That phrase gets used a lot in barndominium planning circles, and it gets used a lot because it's precisely accurate for the H footprint. Here's the one most people don't see coming. It's not structural. It's not zoning. It's acoustic, and the effect it has on the emotional character of living in an H-shaped home is something families consistently report but rarely know how to explain. In a standard rectangular home, or even an L, sound travels continuously. Footsteps upstairs, a television in the far bedroom, a conversation in the kitchen that bleeds into the home office. The rectangle is one connected acoustic chamber. You can dampen it with insulation, with heavy doors, with carpet, but you can never fully interrupt it because the structure is one unbroken piece of air. The H-shape interrupts that. The 2 courtyards, those open-air voids between the wings and the spine, act as acoustic breaks. Sound generated in the east wing has to travel across open outdoor space before it reaches the west wing. That's not a design trick. That's physics. Outdoor space absorbs, scatters, and attenuates sound in a way that interior walls, even well-insulated ones, cannot fully replicate. What this means in practice is something families describe after living in the layout for a few months. They report that the home feels quieter than its square footage would suggest. They report that they can have a full gathering in the spine, music, conversation, the noise of an active family meal, without it bleeding into the private wing where someone is working or sleeping. The grandkids can run through the spine on a Saturday morning without the person in the far wing ever knowing it's happening. This acoustic separation is also what makes the H-shape genuinely suitable for home-based work, not just theoretically suitable, but practically. The wing with the home office sits acoustically isolated from the rest of the household activity by 30 to 50 feet of open air. That's not a closed door, that's an outdoor buffer. The meetings are quieter. The focus is more sustainable. The line between work and family, which is so difficult to draw in open-plan homes, gets drawn by the geometry itself. There's a secondary effect that's harder to quantify but just as real. The courtyard voids create visual separation to match the acoustic one. From inside the east wing, you don't see into the west wing. You see the courtyard sky plantings, whatever the family chose to put in that space. A garden. A fire pit, a play area for the grandchildren, a gravel courtyard with a bench. You don't need a pool, you don't need a water feature. The courtyard functions beautifully as simple open green space. The point isn't what's in it. The point is that it exists between the wings, doing acoustic and visual work that no interior wall can do. People who have sketched H-shapes on napkins for years and never built one often describe feeling something when they finally walk through a finished example. A quietness, a sense that the home is larger and calmer than the square footage number implies. That feeling has a cause. It's the courtyard voids, it's physics working in the plan. The fourth reason engineers flag the H-shape is one that shows up in the building performance data more than it shows up in design conversations. It's about passive thermal behavior, what the geometry does to heating and cooling loads before the HVAC system ever switches on. The courtyard orientation of the H gives the designer unusually precise control over solar exposure. The courtyards can be positioned to catch winter sun low on the horizon or to shade the interior wings from summer sun at peak angle. In a well-oriented H-plan, the wings themselves shade the courtyards during the hottest part of the afternoon, while morning and evening light reaches deep into the glazed interior faces. That solar management isn't incidental, it's baked into the geometry. Research published in building science literature consistently shows that courtyard plan buildings reduce cooling loads meaningfully compared to equivalent area rectangular plans. The effect ranges depending on climate and orientation, but the mechanism is consistent. The courtyard creates a microclimate. The air moving through that sheltered outdoor space is cooler than ambient air on an open site. The walls surrounding the courtyard shade each other. Thermal mass, if the floors and walls are designed for it, absorbs heat during the day and releases it at night, smoothing the temperature curve that the HVAC system has to manage. For cold climate families reading this, and this channel hears from a lot of northern viewers, the H-shape works differently in cold conditions, but it still works. The courtyard in a cold climate context is designed to capture, not ventilate. South-facing courtyard orientation, with generous triple-pane glazing on the courtyard-facing interior walls, creates a semi-greenhouse effect that pre-warms air before it enters the living space. The wings themselves act as windbreaks for the spine. Snow load engineering for Barndominium steel structures is well understood and fully achievable. The shape doesn't compromise the cold weather structural calculation. What it does do in cold climates is require attention to the courtyard glass detailing. That means working with an engineer and not cutting corners on glazing specification. Commission it properly or don't do it at all. The separate wing configuration also allows for zone-controlled mechanical systems that a rectangle makes difficult. Each wing can carry its own HVAC zone, running independently of the other wing and of the spine. If one wing is unoccupied for a week, that zone goes to setback. In a rectangle with a single system serving the whole footprint, that kind of efficiency isn't available. You condition the whole home whether you're using it or not. The H-shape lets you condition what you're using and rest what you're not. Over the lifetime of a home, that zoning efficiency compounds into a meaningful operational difference. Engineers who run building energy models on H-plan barndominiums report that the combination of courtyard solar management and independent zone control produces buildings that outperform their square footage significantly on an energy per square foot basis. The fifth reason is the one that families tend to feel most deeply when they're planning ahead honestly. It's about what the home becomes over time, not just what it is on the day the family moves in. Most homes are designed for one life stage. A young family with 2 kids, a couple whose children have left, a retiree downsizing. The design is optimized for a snapshot. And then life moves on and the home doesn't, and families find themselves either tolerating a floor plan that no longer fits or selling and starting over. The H-shape doesn't lock you into a snapshot. It accommodates the movie. Think about the actual sequence a family lives through. Parents in their 40s building this home for themselves and 2 teenagers. 10 years later, both teenagers are adults, one has moved out, one has come back with a spouse. 5 years after that, a grandchild. The parents are now in their late 50s, still fully capable but beginning to think about the decade ahead. A decade after that, one of the aging grandparents, their own parent, needs to be closer. Not in a facility, closer. In a rectangle, each of those transitions creates a friction problem. Rooms are repurposed awkwardly. Shared space becomes contested space. The home that worked for 4 people in 2025 doesn't work for 2 adults, a married couple, a toddler, and an 80-year-old in 2040. The H-shape handles that entire sequence without major structural intervention. The east wing that was the teenager zone in year 1 becomes the adult-child zone in year 10. With a separate entrance already in place, a kitchenette already roughed in, its own HVAC zone already independent. The west wing that served as home office and guest space becomes the aging parents' full suite when the time comes, because the spatial and mechanical infrastructure was already there. This is what the channel means when it talks about building for future stage rather than current stage. If you're in your 40s and building this home today, you're not building for 42. You're building for 42 and 55 and 68 and whatever comes after that. The H-shape is one of the few residential geometries that can serve all of those stages without major rework. And for families who aren't yet in a position to build this, who are watching this channel because the idea resonates, but the timing or the budget or the land isn't right yet, that's a legitimate place to be. This channel doesn't sell plans. It doesn't push you toward any particular vendor or designer. What it does is give you the framework to recognize a good idea when your time comes. The H-shape will still be a good idea in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years. The logic doesn't expire. The dream is worth holding. The geometry will still be there when you're ready. This channel doesn't work if it only tells you the reasons to do something. So here are the 3 genuine trade-offs of the H-shape, stated plainly without softening. The first is cost and land. An H-shaped footprint requires more exterior wall per square foot of living space than a rectangle. More wall means more material, more insulation, more roofline, more foundation perimeter. The efficiency ratio that makes a rectangle economical works against the H. You're trading structural economy for geometric performance. Additionally, the H requires a significantly wider lot than a simple rectangle of equivalent square footage. The 2 courtyards need real outdoor space to function, not token gaps between wings, but actual open-air volumes. On a narrow urban lot or a heavily restricted rural parcel, the H-shape may simply not fit without compromising the courtyard depth to the point where the design stops performing the way it's supposed to. Check your lot width and your setback requirements before you fall in love with this footprint. The second trade-off is proportional sensitivity. The H-shape is geometrically unforgiving. The relationship between wing length, spine width, and courtyard depth has to be calibrated correctly or the whole plan stops working. Too short a spine and the courtyards feel like gaps, not spaces. Too narrow a wing and the interior rooms feel like corridors. Too shallow a courtyard and the acoustic and thermal benefits disappear. This is not a design you eyeball or rough draft yourself from a YouTube video. The proportions matter. An architect or residential designer who has worked in H-plan geometry, specifically, someone who understands how courtyard dimensions drive the acoustic and solar performance, is not optional here. Commission it properly or don't do it at all. A badly proportioned H costs as much to build as a well-proportioned one and doesn't deliver any of the benefits. The third trade-off is climate and site sensitivity. The H-shape performs best in climates where outdoor space is usable for a meaningful portion of the year. In deep cold climates, the courtyards become less functional as social and acoustic space for months at a time. The design can still be adapted: enclosed courtyards, glazed atria over the spine, careful solar orientation. But those adaptations add cost and require engineering attention that a warm climate H doesn't need. Similarly, heavily wooded sites with mature trees can limit the solar access that makes the courtyard glazing perform thermally. The H-shape rewards flat or gently sloping sites with good solar exposure. It asks more of difficult topography than a simple rectangle would. Those 3 trade-offs are real. They're not reasons not to build the H, they're reasons to go into it with clear eyes and a good team. 2 wings, 1 spine, 2 courtyards. 5 reasons engineers and architects keep recommending this shape, and 3 honest reasons it won't work for everyone. What the H-shaped barndominium actually is, stripped of all the technical explanation, is a design that takes seriously the full arc of a family's life. Not just the life stage you're in right now, not just the household composition on the day you break ground, but the parents who will need to be closer eventually, the adult children who will come back, the grandchildren who will fill that courtyard with noise on summer weekends, and the quiet Tuesday morning 20 years from now when it's just the two of you and the home still fits perfectly. The geometry keeps reappearing across 2,000 years of human building because it keeps solving the same problem. How do you live close to the people you love without losing yourself in the process? Separated but connected. Private and present. Close enough to share a meal, far enough to hear your own thoughts. People who have been sketching something like this for years on paper in their head, on whatever was nearby, deserve to know that their instinct is ancient and it's proven and it's worth pursuing carefully. Before you go, 2 questions. First, practically, would an H-shaped footprint actually fit on the lot you're working with or dreaming about? Lot width, setbacks, the orientation question. Drop your situation in the comments and let's think through it together. Second, of the 5 reasons covered here, the light, the zones, the acoustic separation, the thermal performance, the lifetime adaptability, which one hit you hardest? Which one was the reason you didn't know you were looking for? Tell us in the comments. I read every one personally and I respond. If this is the kind of depth you want in your barndominium research, the structural logic, the honest trade-offs, the design thinking that goes 3 levels deeper than most content, subscribe. That's what this channel is built to do every single video. We'll see you in the next one. We'll see you in the next one.